Welcome back to Cox Connections, exclusively on Cox 9. I'm Jeff Merritt. On April 23rd, Center in the Square hosted an e-scrap collection event. The Cox parking lot on Fallowater Lane was one of the drop-off locations. The Connections crew was on location to capture the results.
Making good use of Earth Day. What's the charity that this is?
Center in the Square.
We've partnered with Center in the Square. They're the beneficiary, and so citizens across Roanoke can drop off all sorts of electronic equipment, pretty much anything with a cord. We're collecting those items. They will save them from going in the landfill. It's a great time of year with it being Earth Month in April to collect those things, keep them from going in the landfill, and then we will take and recycle all those items. The funding from that recycling will actually benefit Center in the Square.
Jeff Merritt, who's the manager here at Cox, stepped forward and asked if we would be interested in participating. I said absolutely, because a community partner is so important, and we have Grand Home Furnishings on the other side of town and Cox on this side of town. In January, we picked up 100,000 pounds of e-scrap or e-waste, which is electronic waste. Most anything with a battery or a cord would qualify. We're not necessarily interested in old TV sets that have the big tubes, but most everything else qualifies. And the community had 100,000 pounds for us to process in January, which then brought Center in the Square money. And we get 8 cents a pound once it's processed. You have a lot of costs associated with picking it up. On average, e-scrap will bring about 23 cents a pound, but then you have cost associated with labor, transportation, disassembly, all those kind of costs. So we do net, and when you take 100,000 pounds at 8 cents a pound, that makes a big difference, and that's one day's work. Hey, that's pretty good.
We take anything with a cord except really two things. One, the CRT tube, which you're going to see in an older type TV and some of the computer monitors. We don't take those for these type of events. There's a special way that those have to be handled, primarily because the lead in the glass really needs to be handled by a company that charges for that, and so it's a fairly expensive process. The only other thing we really can't take is refrigerant, so anything with coolant in it we don't have a license for that. So everything else though is good to go.
Folks have said, hey, I've had these things sitting around our house for a long time, and we're happy to get rid of them. We've seen everything from vacuum cleaners to old radios. We had a lady drop off what she said was her high school alarm clock, and this had a little bit of age on it. And so we've seen all kinds of different things. A lot of computers. A lot of people have the old tower computers, and they've gone to laptops and newer devices. And these are pretty heavy pieces of equipment. They're just sitting around their house that they really don't know what to do with. The great thing about this is the company that's recycling these things is totally secure, so they take all of those items and make sure that any confidential information on there is completely wiped off, that material is shredded, and so those folks can feel comfortable about donating it here.
A lot of the material that will come in will be dismantled here in Roanoke, and the steel, copper, aluminum, batteries, that type thing are recycled locally, primarily with two really good companies here in Roanoke, OmniSource and Gerdau, both world-class local recycling companies. The precious metals pieces are all eventually refined at a refinery in Sweden called Boliden, which is really another world-class operation that specializes in electronic precious metal refining.
All of the employees that you see here from Cox, they're volunteering their time. It's in their off time. And so that's a great thing about Cox, and it's a great thing about our team here in Roanoke. I mean, they really do believe in giving back to the community. And we have volunteers signed up throughout the course of the day, starting at 7:30 this morning, running through 4:30 this afternoon in different shifts. And so they're all volunteering their time. We also have a number of volunteers from Center in the Square. They have collected some of their own volunteers to come over and help out. And it's really making the process go pretty smoothly so people can pull right up. They most of the time don't even have to get out of their vehicle. We'll just take the equipment from them, drop it off, and they can go about their way. Cox is definitely very interested in preserving the planet for future generations. It's part of the Cox culture is Cox Conserves, and we do a lot of things from recycling, not just this electronic recycling on our facility here at Fallowater. We collect for the county, so paper, plastics, these sorts of things. Plus, we have a number of events throughout the course of the year where our employees will volunteer their time and efforts to really support things related to the environment. As you could see, a lot of people turned out to safely dispose of old computers and other electronics during this great event, which, as mentioned, helps support Center in the Square. Be sure to visit centerinthesquare.org. More Cox Connections coming up. Stay tuned.